recording. Okay. Yeah, so again, the camera is not set up here. I'm going to have to try to figure that out for 10:51. Okay. So, come on, really? Let me update that. Doop. 5.
I didn't know we were back in time.
All right, so welcome to 2168. This is my favorite course to teach, that I regularly get to teach. I haven't had the chance to teach 3223 as often as I've, too often to form too much of an opinion on it, but I've taught this one. I've taught some variation of this course since I think like 2012, not necessarily at the school, but by far my favorite course to teach is this one. This is the course basically that is essentially one half of the battery of courses that large companies like Google, Microsoft, or Netflix will draw from for their interview questions. So if there's an incentive to kind of pay attention in class, there you go. I'll go ahead and open up the syllabus because that will, give an overview of how this course is going to work, and then we're just going to get to work because this course is fun. So first off, I'm Professor Rosen. Hopefully I'm in the right place and I'm not just chatting at random people. I do recognize some people, so that is a good sign for me. But this is 2168. It's data structures. My email is here, andrew.rosen@temple.edu. For any other contact information, you can go over here. And David's already updated his information over here. I will be updating my office hours, but they're generally going to be in between my classes. So think about like 12:30 to 1:30. I will be updating that information today. Wasn't sure what was going to be going on in my evening, so.
I understand, and also too, I'll be available. I can't talk today, can I? My office hours are listed there too, but also Zoom by appointment. I'm usually available on the weekends as well if that helps you guys out. So just send an email.
Zoom, again, by appointment for me in the evening. I can meet over Zoom in the evenings or on Tuesday or on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, basically any time on those days. Just send me an email. The times that I will not be able to meet you is generally from 8 to 9:30 because in the mornings because I'll be taking my kid to school, and 3 o'clock because I'll be picking him up, and then I will be simply just not available from sundown on Friday to sundown on Saturday. So I take a break. So there you go. So with regards to but again, just feel free to email. It's literally my job to help you. Don't feel like you're imposing by requesting to meet with me. So we're going to learn how to, so we've been dealing with a lot of data, a lot of variables and stuff over the course of this class. We now basically step into kind of the world of like we've got a bunch of problems, and these problems actually become simple if we simply know how to organize data in the correct way. We aren't learning about databases. What we're doing is we're learning about structures that you might use to build databases with. These are kind of the fundamental building blocks that are built out of the really fundamental building blocks. We'll also be learning some language-specific details, such as generics. The other 2168 sections don't really go over generics, which are a feature in Java and other programming languages. Because it's just such an easy thing to go over, I enjoy going over it, and we'll be learning that during the second week. We'll also be reviewing this week inheritance. Second week we'll be dealing with array lists. Third week is time complexity. Our fourth module, where we stop being kind of week by week and going into our module, is linked lists. This is where, basically the hardest week of this semester is week 4 and 5. Once you clear week 4 and 5, you can take a nice deep breath because you know it's all downhill from there, in the good kind of way. So the linked list, though, is kind of our hardest thing. So the difficulty in this course is very much front-loaded because we require you to know that really abstract thought that you hopefully got really useful, you got from 1068 about how references really work. And if not, well, you're going to learn. Stacks and queues. We'll be doing recursion as well, which isn't strictly a data structure, but it's really useful, and it's necessary to learn how recursive data structures like trees work. I'm going to assume that you haven't learned how recursion works, even though you totally have learned how recursion works, right? I believe Professor Fiore covers that in 1068, yes? Yep. So I will be covering it as though you have never learned it, which is useful if you've taken a semester off. So, but that's okay. But we're going to be dealing with that in a lot more detail. The assignment there is solving a few classic computer science problems like the 8 queens problem and creating an automatic Sudoku solver. Then we'll be doing trees, heaps, Huffman trees for learning how basic encryption or not encryption but file compression works. Sorting algorithms, hash tables, and graphs. The important part, though, is this part that's bolded. The lectures will be flipped. Now, what does this mean? Basically, the traditional lecture style, which I'm doing right now, which is I basically just drone on and on and on, isn't necessarily the best style. First off, your attention span is about 15 minutes long. Everybody else's attention span is. It's kind of hard to stay focused and engaged all the time. After 15 minutes, it becomes a real struggle. And honestly, the other big thing is that when the easy part of learning is this part, the knowledge acquisition. The hard part of learning is applying the knowledge in some way and gaining skills from that, which is the programming. So I'm available, so in a traditional lecture, I'm available to you during the easy part, right? Right here, during the easy acquisition, I'm right here. And then during the hard part, I'm off somewhere else, right? You're at your computer at home, banging your head against the wall trying to solve this problem. And then you send me an email and hope I'll get back to you at today. And that may not be possible. So the flipped lecture flips that around. The idea here is that the knowledge acquisition is done when you're traditionally doing homework. And the homework's done when you would traditionally be doing other things. In effect, both your lectures are now labs, essentially. That's right, you've got 3 labs in a row. And your lectures will be watched online at home. Now, I promise you I'm not one of those professors who, as a result, basically gives you tons and tons of lectures to read or watch. I've done pretty high quality videos, I feel, at least for a solo production like myself. And there's no more than 2 hours a week, right? And if you remember, these classes are an hour, 20 minutes long, so 2 hours, 40 minutes is what I could reasonably expect you to watch, and I'm keeping it around 2 hours. So I keep it nice and efficient. Now, furthermore, these videos are split up into, I try to keep them around 15 minutes. Pedagogically speaking, a video should, if you want a student to watch a video, you want to keep the content to about a minute per grade level. So 15 minutes is perfectly acceptable at college, right? If I was teaching a bunch of high school sophomores, we'd be looking at 10 minutes per video. So the way this works is that basically each week, right, I've got this over here. This is a nice overview over here if you want to go into that, but modules is basically the way you'll navigate the course. Over here, if you have some issues with installing Java or IntelliJ because you come from a separate university where you maybe did everything in C++, over here, that's fine. And then over here, each week you'll have the videos. Like this week it's review, which is why I didn't tell you in advance to watch it. I just said if you had issues, come over here. So object-oriented programming. And then over here, this is an embedded playlist. So you go over here to the top right, or you click on to watch on YouTube. I highly recommend installing an ad blocker, by the way. I don't monetize my channel. They're simply on YouTube because YouTube is basically always going to be up, and it's never going to be my fault that it goes down. So if you can't watch my videos, it's not my fault, and very clearly not my fault. So over here, you've got these videos over here that simply go over what you would have learned in 1068, the bits that are relevant for my course. The only thing that you may not know is the 6 and 7, which is the instance of function, and the 7, which is the for each loop, which I'm very fond of using in this course. If you took Python with me, then you're very familiar with the for each loop. This is just how you do it in Java instead of Python. The for each loop is the only loop that is the only for loop that Python has. So it's basic. The for each is the Python for loop. So for next week, what you want to do before Tuesday is watch these videos, the array list videos, which I go over how you build the array list. The first video is always this high level overview, and it's where we dumped a bunch of a budget for another course to do, and you got all the benefits of me being able to reuse those videos for this course. Then I spend half the videos going over, okay, this is an array list, how do we use it? And then the rest is how do we build this data structure pedagogically, right? Now, I'm not going to be showing you how Java builds it because that's got hopefully more optimizations in it than I would be able to think of and show you. But basically the idea is that if you understand what I write, you'll be able to understand how this works practically in the real implementation. So basically, each week before the Tuesday, you want to watch these videos. So that and then in course, in here we'll be working on our weekly assignments, our weekly homework. So occasionally, I'll do an in-class exercise to emphasize something, but generally the idea here is that I'm going to be here every day, every Tuesday, Thursday, going around the class, helping you with your assignment. Also, more than happy for you to work with your partners here. So it's a very collaborative space, right? So you found out. So great, you found out where it is. One of you corrected me and said, "Hey, you didn't update it from Monday and Wednesday." Awesome. So thanks for calling me out on that. Next, I believe this is the correct time for the lab.
Yep. Should be exact.
That'll be with David. David will be here. I don't know. He'll see how often he comes here.
I'm going to try and see if I can be here just because, again, first time working with you on data structures professorism, so I want to make sure I get a feel exactly how you guys are going to be learning a lot of this and see, kind of gauge it out. But You're going to expect to see me around at lab, and again, any questions that pertain to the assignments, I'm going to be there to help you out.
Yeah, okay. This lecture is atypical because I will be lecturing for much longer than I normally do simply because I'm going over the syllabus. If you did not do well in 1166 or 1068, you may not be ready for this course, so either consider retaking one of those 1068 specifically, or just be ready to hit the ground running, okay? So, finally, this is probably the most important part though. A reliable laptop is recommended, especially since we do a lot of coding in these lectures. If you do not have a laptop, there's plenty of kiosks for you to borrow a laptop. Also, there's plenty of students for you to work with who do have laptops, and I'm a big proponent of pair programming. But most importantly, if your laptop is not good to use, if it's painful to use your laptop, yeah, we need to fix that. Speak to me. I'll figure out something in your budget.
Also, too, I'm part of TU Dev as well as some other clubs and groups and stuff like that. We know how to find decent hardware, so you can always ask me as well when it comes down to components, stuff like that, all that.
Yep. Yeah, you will experience, as I put here, torments, lamentations, wailing, gnashing of teeth. Add any other biblical terms you want to add into there, because it's just really not fun if your laptop takes 5 minutes to boot up and then compiling your code takes another 3 minutes. It just becomes so painful to do anything, and it's really hard. And if your laptop has a cracked screen and stuff like that, just please speak with me. I will find something in your budget. And if you don't have a budget, I will help you figure out something to do.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Free peer tutoring for CIS classes is available circ 358. Furthermore, this course has a fairly active Discord. You can find the invite right here under other important links. It's a fairly, it's a great place to go and ask for help. But either from me or from other students. It's very, very useful. I've got tons of people from previous semesters just simply hanging out. David, for instance, was just hanging out for previous semesters until I hired him as a TA. So
yeah, I just kind of lurked for a little bit and chimed in from here and there. So again, you're going to see a lot of people that have already taken this course that may be able to give you some insight on what direction to take if you guys are struggling with something. It may not be the exact same thing, but they know their stuff.
Right. Attendance is expected in the sense. I fall short of saying required because I can't physically drag you into this room and I can't physically keep you here. So I don't feel like I can use that language. But I expect you to show up. I expect you to show up to your lab. You're paying for this course. Show up. It's worthwhile. Plus, there's a very strong correlation in every course you'll ever take between attendance and performance in the course. I am prone, as I mentioned here, to mentioning what will and won't be on the test, up to and including exact questions that are on the exam. So if you are sick or suspect you're sick, no, don't come. I totally understand. This is part of the reason I don't grade you on attendance, right? Just email me. I'll help catch you up if you need to be helped get caught up, and that's that, right? Just even if it's on an exam day with an exam, right? Just tell me you're sick, right? And then we'll see what we need to do from there.
But please tell us. Don't wait till last minute if it can be helped.
Yeah, I can't, if you tell me 2 weeks later after the exam that, hey, I was sick and I missed it, can I make it up? I'm like, were you sick or were you incapacitated? Because at the latter, I need some documentation. At the former, I can't do anything. You know, communication is key here. The more you tell me in advance, the better. Similarly, mental health. If you're having issues with mental health, experience stress or worry, changes in mood, problem eating or sleeping, right, and it's affecting your class performance, please come and see me. I might, I'm not a psychologist or anything, not a counselor or not a therapist, but I can be somebody who can listen, and more relevantly, the earlier you tell me that you're having difficulties in the class, I can come up with solutions, alternate schedules for you to turn in stuff, alternate accommodations. The earlier you tell me that things are interfering with your life, the more I can do. I can do a lot right now, and once we get halfway through the semester, I start being able to do a lot less. And then once we're like 3 weeks out from the end of the class, there's not really anything I can do to really help if you've been having issues all semester. Similarly, if you have to utilize the Disability Resource Center, DRS, just let them know, and they'll let me know just let me know what accommodations you need, and I'll make any reasonable accommodations. I have yet to find any accommodations that are unreasonable, okay? Although, except for possibly sending them my exams. That's generally a pain in the butt.
Yeah, I think it's lost twice, I think.
It's mainly because of the way the website's set up, but it's not necessarily their fault. I do record these lectures and I do upload them to YouTube. You will be able to find them in one of two places, either by clicking here on the lecture recordings under important links, or right here. I will have a playlist. I will just simply put a new playlist at the top here, and if you are lost or don't see it uploaded, you can always go to these playlists of every other semester I've taught this course. Because I don't see why you shouldn't be able to see all of my embarrassing failures that I've ever made. So, grading. So letter grades will be assigned at minimum. It changes from semester to semester what the quote-unquote curve is. It's not really a curve. I don't change your numerical grade. I just change the cutoff points for what the grades are. But I guarantee if you get a 90 or above, that's an A. Not an A minus, an A. Same with a B. 80 or above is a B. In general, you'll need about a 70 to pass the class. Here it is this was actually 2022's break points, but it's fairly consistent between the semesters, where basically we had an A was a 90, an A minus was an 88. What I do is I look for a gap in the grades, generally, because I'm like, what's the difference between a 90.01 and an 89.9? Not really much of a difference, right? But the difference between a 89.09 and an 87, that's a fairly larger difference, so I'm comfortable with drawing a line between there. Generally, I look for a break of a half a point or higher between those kind of cutoffs, and I just do the same for everything else. There is the only ways to fail the class is that if you fail to do the majority of the work, or you cheat, right? If you turn everything in, and even if it's turned in really late and stuff, and it's not all that works, if you made an honest effort, the worst you'll ever get is a D in this course, okay? However, cheating is basically the way to fail. This simply stems from my long-standing argument that I have with the academic financial aid office, where I've had contradictory instructions from them in the past, and me giving Fs and then following their directions ended up with students having their aid getting threatened to be revoked because I followed their directions, and then they assumed that the student didn't show up half the semester, even though they said if the student made it to the end of the course, took the final exam and still failed, please just leave the date last attended blank. And I did. And they're like, well, we don't see that. We don't see a date here, so we're going to assume they dropped out halfway through the semester. So we're going to need half your aid back. And so that only got resolved by me going to the financial aid's office with the student and physically yelling at the person in front of them that the student attended the course. And by the way, I wrote you letters and sent it from my email. I can't believe you didn't accept those. So, and I'm not leaving until this. Anyway, breakdown for the grades. Okay, this is a fairly exam-heavy course. Sorry about that. First off, those quizzes. Don't freak out when you say quizzes. Notice that they're 5% of the grade. Quizzes are actually more self-checks. They have no real due date other than they're very soft due dates. As long as they get done, they'll get graded. Not only that, you can take them multiple times. The I think the only penalty I currently have for taking a quiz multiple times is it locks you out for 15 minutes. Okay? Because the quizzes aren't there what they're there for is for you to assess. Not for me to assess? Do you know what you know? Sorry, they're not there for me to assess. Do you know everything? They're there for you to assess. Do you know the things that you need to know? Okay, so that's why they're there for you to check how well you understand it. And then the 15 minutes lockout is just simply so you don't go through and try to spam all the answers until you get the correct ones. Okay. The labs and assignments, same thing. That's what we're going to be doing in here. Exam, that's 30% of the grade. Exam 1 is about 20% of the grade. Exam 1's average is generally fairly low, generally in the high 60s. Okay, if you do an 80 or better on that exam, I consider that you should basically, if you get an 80 or better on that exam, you're in an extremely good place. If you get lower than a 70 on the exam, you really need to pick up the pace. And if you're between a 70 or 80, I have no idea. That's basically varies from student to student. On the other hand, the exam 2, the average for that exam is generally around an 87 or so. It's not that it's much harder, it's that it's not that's any easier, it's that the students have basically figured out what the thinking they need is and how well that works. Generally, you score as you can tell, the vast majority of the course scores really high on that exam, and then you have a couple of people that fail that exam. So most people score very well on that exam. And then the final exam, that generally is a bit rough for students, not because of the content, but because generally when I have to give the final exam is like the last day of finals, so you're basically wiped out at that point. So, sorry.
So just remember, it's more of a marathon than a race, and like we said before, this is a very front-heavy course, which is why that kind of leads to that percentage. So just take your time learning the material. Mm-hmm. That's all I can say. Yep.
Turning in the labs. So to get a grade for for those of you who have not taken a course from me, this is going to be important. For those of you who have taken 1051 with me, this will work exactly the same way. You submit your work online to Canvas first to turn in your assignment. Okay, turn it in by the due date. I'll get into the late penalty later, but turn it in. And then you demo it to me or TA in order to get your grade. That's the second part. So in other words, when you're done with the assignment, sometime during your labs or your lectures, come to me. And the idea here is that you need to explain your work to get it checked off. Okay? The first assignment is structured very much so that we can do this, where you're going to be explaining a strategy, whatever strategy you come up with to me. It's basically just explaining how your code works, making sure this also gets around the well, it worked on my computer kind of thing that happens sometimes. So show me on your computer. And we do accept your late work. Generally, the late penalty is 5 points per day late with a maximum of half credit. The minimum is half credit that you can get on it. So we're very accepting of that. That being said, do I have that rule in here? I don't think I need it for this class, so that's why I don't have it written down. Oh, no, I have it. You have up to 2 weeks after the due date to demo your lab. Otherwise, we'll enter a 0. In general, though, we waive that if you've been showing up to class, though. So if it's like 3 weeks, we'll kind of ignore it. The issue is that sometimes at the end of the semester, I have a student who turns in everything and tries to demo everything at the end of the semester. And that, the last time that happened, the student tried to do it over Zoom, point his camera at the computer, and I discovered he was shirtless. So that was just not a great experience all around. So it's kind of soured me on the whole, okay, I'm going to help the students out no matter what, in that regard. That and all the cheaters that came by at the end of the semester before him. So all right. Exams most likely will be during week 6. This is week 1, and week 10 or 11, depending on the pace of the class. Generally, though, we give it during week 6, which is at the tail end of where everybody else gives their exams. Again, if you need an accommodation, just speak to me about optimal solutions. The due date for exams is hard. Basically, we're not going to change that unless you basically let me know in advance that A, you were sick, or let me know that you have an engagement. Otherwise, that I'll wait. That being said, I do know that Most likely this one will happen during Ramadan. So if you are, this generally, it's going to be early in the day, but if there's an issue with you fasting and taking exams, then we can accommodate that and give that exam much later in the day for you.
Again, communication. Just give us a heads up now while we can, and we can make those arrangements for you.
It's not really that hard for us to accommodate that. And this exam is supposed to be an accurate assessment, and I do know that depending on how well that how fasting might go, that can affect your, whether or not I get an accurate assessment. All right. One more thing to clarify. The late penalty, when work is late, that is based off when you turn it in, not when you demo it. So you don't get points off for demoing it late. You get points off for turning it in late.
So a good example would be, say for example, you turn it in, and then you demo it to me, and we need to make a correction, correct?
Yep.
So the thing is, you're going to have to resubmit that code after we made those corrections, but I don't think we'll take any late penalties for that because you've already submitted it before and we're doing some light work. However, if it's something more, then we will have to kind of talk on those details. But
Yep.
I'll leave that up to your discretion.
We try to be very fair about this. For example, if you did, if you do assignment due has like 5 parts, each worth 20 points. If you basically turn in 4 of those 5, you'll get, and they're all fine, but you completely miss the mark on the last one, then I'll give you full credit on the first 4, and then that last one, if you completely forgot to do it, that might be late. We try to be fair about it, in other words. Okay. Academic honesty, right? So don't cheat. I have a very long long-winded example about what is considered cheating. In general, the rule is that basically, as long as you're the one asking for help, you can see as long as you are asking for help, you can show other people your code. If you are the one providing help, don't show your code. That's basically the long and short of it, right? Don't show other people's answers. Don't show your answers to other people, but you can show other people your questions, right? Why isn't this working? Dump it on Discord. Fantastic. No problem.
Also, too, if you guys are going to be taking your code and putting it on GitHub, biggest recommendation so you don't get in trouble, make your GitHub private until the course is over. We've seen some people, I'm not sure if that's something that abides by you, but I know Piscucci is very adamant about that. Fair warning ahead of time. Yeah.
The main thing, though, is don't go to Chegg unless you really want that academic misconduct charge. That's where the vast majority of the 50 or so academic misconduct charges I've gotten come from, because I know which of my assignments are on there and I know what they look like. Also, ChatGPT won't really help because if you use it to solve your problems, because you have to be able to explain those solutions. That's the entire point of the demoing process. I did it well before ChatGPT, and it just happens to helpfully cover that. And of course, you're not going to be able to solve the equivalent on the exam, which is going to be painful. So I have a list of reasonable and unreasonable, but in general, if you're honestly asking for help and honestly providing it, and you accidentally step over that line, we'll be able to tell that it was an accident, and we'll just simply admonish you. So I'd rather you err on the side of helping people. But again, just if you have an answer, don't show it to people, right?
I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut.
No, go ahead.
It's not doing them justice, because if you just give them the answers, they're not getting it. And it doesn't help anybody. But by coaching them, it gives you the ability to have them work through the problem and solve it in their own way. I've done that millions of times.
Not to mention that actually teaching somebody is the way to master something. All right. You have rights, believe it or not, as students. I know that seems weird. There's things like patent rights that maybe you should know about just in case you accidentally invent something while you're on school grounds. And the answer is it's actually not that bad of a deal for you. So just FYI, you do have rights. Among those rights are, by the way, that you shouldn't take more than 3 finals in a single day. So keep that in mind. I break the rules here. I'm supposed to put the date of the final exam on here. I don't, because I find it the same place you do, and there was one time where I accidentally copy-pasted the wrong date, and that led to a long confusion. So I just simply tell you, as we get later in the semester, go and look up Temple University final exam schedule, and there's a nice big paper that shows it for every class, for every time slot, rather. All right, with that, let's get coding. So our first so basically you'll be dealing with one basically weekly assignment. There's an object-oriented programming quiz, just that simply review. You can take that when you need. Generally, I'm going to try to make our assignments due on Wednesdays. Not this Wednesday, of course, because that would be rather silly. But over here, we're going to be going over an assignment called Fox and Rabbit. There's a PDF that's going to go over a lot of what I talk about here, but I'm going to go ahead and just kind of show you. So first off, we have this file called hunt.zip. What I'm going to do is I'm going to open up IntelliJ, if I can, IntelliJ, there we go.
If you need help setting up IntelliJ soon, now would be the time. We can help you walk through if you haven't installed it yet.
You don't have to use IntelliJ, by the way. You can use whatever the heck you want. I'm actually a big proponent of you should use whatever tool makes you most comfortable. Generally, if I see a student using Emacs or Vim, I know that student's probably getting an A. Yeah, so like I see a student using Emacs or Vims, I'm like, I don't need to worry about the student. Same with the student using Linux generally. I'm like, aha, you know what you're doing. It's not always true. Sometimes they get Bs, but generally, but that's generally because they don't do some work or something. So let's go ahead and boot this up to a reasonable size so that we can see this on screen. So over here, right, I've got a test project set up in here. I'll go ahead and set up a new project, right, new project, and let's just call it Rabbit Hunt, whatever. You can call it Assignment 1 or whatever, but it's called Rabbit Hunt, this window. And what we're going to do is we're going to download this zip file.